Good evening, everyone. To quote my friend Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi, or our friend, everybody's friend. So, a few days ago, I posted a video of a speech by a Holocaust survivor by the name of Vera Sharav. She's a lady who I think was born in Romania and then was evacuated when she was 3 years old. She ended up in a Ukrainian detention camp and then came to New York with her mother. I think her father was taken in the Holocaust. And so I posted this speech that she gave at actually the anniversary, I think it was the 75th anniversary of Nuremberg. Nuremberg trials in Nuremberg itself. And she said, in that speech, that basically there are parallels between today and specifically 1933. She didn't say there are parallels between today and the camps. She said today there are parallels between today and 1933. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what went on in 1933 in Europe, 33. I challenge you, go and educate yourself and Google all these things. This is the stuff that Google hasn't censored yet. You know what I'm saying? You can find everything that happened in the 1930s in Europe to your heart's content, or to your heart's depression, however you want to frame it. Okay? So she gave a speech essentially outlining all the things, and medical tyranny that went on, and basically murder, mass murder. Again, even before we got to the camps. So, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people, it resonated with a lot of people. I noticed on Twitter and other places. But it seems like there are other people who are either they're deliberately turning this into like a third rail, or they just don't know. They just don't know history. I think it's the first one. I think they're deliberately turning this into a third rail so that people stop digging and look for similarities. Again, similarities between what happened in the 30s. No camps. Yet. Okay? They don't want people digging around. So now, my friends, lo and behold, a couple days ago, what do we see? What do we find? A story of a woman in Germany, a Russian-speaking Jewish woman by the name of Inna Zhvanietskaya. That last name to me is familiar because there was I forget his first name, there was a comedian whose name was Zhvanetsky. And I think he was from Odessa, typical Odessa, Jewish humorist, as we call him in Russian, comedian. I guess you could say stand-up comic, but in the Soviet Union, stand-up comedy was a little different, you know what I mean? A little more subtle. They took jabs at the government, but everything was veiled. You know what I'm saying? They couldn't just openly I hate the Soviet Union. Couldn't do that. They joked a lot about family life and just life in general. Okay. I don't know if she's related to this Zhvanetsky guy, but her last name is Zhvanetska. And she's a composer, a very well-known composer in Russia and in Europe. And what happened? This lady is 85 years old. She lives in Germany today, in Stuttgart, Germany. I believe it's West Germany. And I guess someone decided that she has dementia or that she has some sort of psychological problem. And a court in her local town, a local court, a judge decided that she's going to be placed in psychiatric, in some kind of psychiatric facility, and she's going to be given 2 shots of you-know-what against her will. Baruch Hashem, a higher court, which was appealed to, decided that that's not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. So they interviewed this woman, and she's speaking, she speaks kind of rudimentary German, enough to get by in day-to-day life, but it's not good enough to represent herself in court. Baruch Hashem, there was a person from the Jewish community where she lives who took action. And by the way, the story goes that this guy, I forgot his name is Ari something, sent a message to the, I guess, self-appointed Jewish leader in Germany, or in that region, basically, come on, take action. The woman did not respond. The woman, whom he sent the letter to, is known for not standing up against BDS and not standing up against the Iranian regime. Basically, she's a leftist. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the German government and Erev Rav in Germany coming after a poor 85-year-old, non-schmaxed, essentially Holocaust survivor woman who was born in 1937. So, my friends, for those of you who are doubting, once again, who are all offended, are up in arms, that we are that we are comparing what has happened in the last 3 years to the 1930s, to the medical policies and the medical tyranny in Germany of the 1930s, I will advise you to educate yourself. Again, there's a lot of information that wasn't banned by Google or YouTube, or mountains of information. You can research, just type in Nazis, go to YouTube, Nazis medical tyranny, Nazis euthanasia, Nazis, I don't know, doctors, Nazi doctors. Type in anything to do with medical and Nazis in the 1930s. Ladies and gentlemen, you could sit, as much as you sit around and watch Netflix series, you can binge and binge and binge on this content that I'm talking about. And after you finish binging on it, if you don't, after you're done with it, if you don't understand what the hell's been going on for the last 3 years, if you don't understand the fact that, by the way, these Nazi doctors and all these scientists that were imported after the war to America, and that this whole infrastructure and this whole system in, our hospitals, and with the CDC, and with the NIH, and with the WHO, has been in place since that time. If you don't understand that, then I cannot help you, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what else to say to you. And if you're going to sit there and tell me I'm this, I'm whatever, deplorable and offensive and this, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm reminding you again, my grandfather was an officer in the Soviet Army. His first wife, the woman he was married to before he met my grandmother, was killed by the Nazis in Berdichev. My great-grandfather was killed by the Nazis in Berdichev. The baby she had in her stomach was killed by the Nazis in Berdichev. My grandfather was a POW twice, since he was Jewish and card-carrying member, even though he wasn't a communist, of the Communist Party, and an officer. He basically escaped to the woods twice out of what's called encirclement, makeshift POW camp. Okay? And then he came back to Berdichev and he found the Ukrainian police officer who was responsible for murdering his family, and he killed that guy on the spot without a judge or jury. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so don't lecture me about anything. I don't know what to tell you. All I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is if you want to know, for those of you who want to know when this nightmare is going to end, I'll tell you when it's going to end. I'll tell you exactly when it's going to end. In order to understand or kind of imagine when it's going to end, look back at that time, ladies and gentlemen. The Nazi regime went all the way to the bitter end. The people who followed them, the people who did whatever they said, were as if in a trance. They were hypnotized. And the only way that hypnosis was broken, the only way that happened, was when the people who were hypnotizing them were stopped in their tracks. Ladies and gentlemen, I've come to the conclusion that whoever's watching and is so gung-ho about the you-know-what and taking 4 and taking 5 and this, I'm not going to break you out of your stupor. Unless you break out of it yourself, right? Most of these people, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a so-called conspiracy theorist of your family or friends group, you're not going to break your friends out of the stupor. You know when they're going to be broken out of their stupor? When the people who got them into the stupor to begin with will be neutralized. Dr. Mousy, Gil Bates, Cotton Swab, and all the rest of them, ladies and gentlemen. I don't need to name more names. There's a ton more names. There's a bunch, right? Shmurla, la la la, the list goes on and on and on. All their underlings, all the people. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, when those people are neutralized, when those people are, at the very least, put on kind of public questioning about everything that they did in the last 3 years, that is when, and I already see it, people are waking up slowly, but I'm talking about the real gung-ho people that you're just like, you know, you talk to them, you guys know what I'm talking about. You talk to some people, it feels like you're living in alternative realities. It feels like you believe in your lying eyes, you're asking them to do the same, they can't bring themselves to do the same. Ladies and gentlemen, it's only going to happen, they're going to wake up, really wake up, is when the people who did this to them have hypnotized the world. You know, again, I have a friend who told me about a year ago, she said, you know, Tzvi, you need to understand that the people who are doing this, they are using spiritual powers. They are using the powers of the occult to do this. They have hypnotized at least 50% of the world, maybe more. Mesmerized and hypnotized. You can't snap your fingers and get them out of it, ladies and gentlemen. You ever see a hypnotism show? You know, only the hypnotizer can get the person who is hypnotized out of the thing, out of their state. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this case, it's not going to happen until those people are neutralized, and then when those people are no longer doing their hypnosis, their ongoing kind of non-stop hypnosis to this day, to this moment, that's when people are going to be like, you know what? We have a problem here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've said my piece, and we're going to go live very soon, B'ezrat Hashem, myself and Frank. And we're going to get deeper into this stuff. And there's a lot more where that came from, a lot of interesting stuff tonight, topics we're going to cover, and stay tuned. La'alato.